Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of Bold Business. I'm David Grasso from GenFKD, a nonprofit dedicated to helping millennials understand money and entrepreneurship.
And I'm Lyndsay Chrisitan. Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember to share your comments throughout the show via Facebook and Twitter. We want to hear from you. So, David, what's happening in business news?
Well, the markets are falling out of the sky, but we're going to put that off to the side because we don't deal in that business. We're going to talk about a headline from Fox Business about our favorite company, Amazon. Yeah, I get a box from them every day.
Yeah, just about.
Yeah, everyone does. Okay, Amazon Air is launching into the skies, and that fleet of 40 cargo planes could affect our friends over at UPS and FedEx.
That is major. You talk about ramping up the competition. Amazon's like kicking them out of the skies with their planes. But I think because the demand is increasing with Amazon's product and all the shipments, I'm sure they're going to increase over the holidays. They need some extra modes of transportation.
And that's absolutely correct. There's only so much bandwidth, and Amazon is really changing the name of the game and the way it works. And let's now talk about the war they're having with the U.S. Postal Service over the rates, the preferential rates, supposedly, that President Trump has accused them of being a recipient of. So they need to find alternative ways. And, of course, Amazon, any space they get into, they make waves.
They make it. So it's a home run for the Major League Baseball. The league has extended its contract with Fox Sports. Did you get that? A home run? Okay. Has extended its contract with Fox Sports another 7 years, according to Sports Business Journal. The contract is worth up to $5 billion or $729 million a year. This includes exclusive TV broadcast rights for the World Series and All-Star Game. Are you going to be watching?
No, I'm not. But I'm pretty sure that to live on my block now in New York City, if you didn't get there when I got there, you have to be a baseball player.
Yeah, I think that's, well, yeah, everyone's a Yankees fan. I'm just not a baseball fan, but good luck to the MLB. And that's great that they have coverage, exclusive rights, rather, until 2028.
You know, what's really interesting about Fox is divesting itself of its movie studio, et cetera, but they're really doubling down on news and sports, et cetera. And I think they're really smart. You know, Rupert Murdoch's an older guy. He's an older gentleman. I believe he's 90 or over 90. But, you know, he's still making great decisions. Seems like the old noggin's working real well.
Yeah, that's a smart decision.
Yeah, absolutely. Our final headline is from Ad Age, and I remember from last episode I'm not supposed to say absolutely. That's something I learned, so no, absolutely. According to a study by Cantor, financial companies are losing out on billions of assets due to a lack of marketing, get this, to women.
To us. They're missing the mark because we are some of the top consumers. You need to talk to us, speak to us directly, because we are going to open our pocketbooks, our wallets, our purses faster than you guys.
Well, especially if you're the typical nuclear family, husband and wife. I don't know about you, but in my household, my mom writes the checks.
Right.
And that is much more common than the opposite from what I've seen.
Right. And I mean, generations ago, like my grandfather would write the checks and make all the decisions, and now times have changed and we are running the show now, the women. So marketers, market to us, speak to us.
Yeah, well, let's not talk about, just diversity and, so many companies are leaving the money on the table when they don't market to diverse segments.
Absolutely. A lot of missed opportunities.
A lot of missed opportunities. So this is just one of a zillion missed opportunities, corporate America. I hope you're paying attention. Anyway, we always have a bunch of guests here on the show. So we're going to kick off our show with our Bookster segment. If you haven't heard, Bookster's a website for book lovers and much more. They're friends of ours, one of our partners. And today we're welcoming Bardi Toto. She's the author of Power of Asking.
Welcome, Bardi.
Hey, how are you? Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
So what is the Power of Asking?
Yeah, we want to know.
Okay, so first of all, the reason I wrote the book is people kept coming to me, asking me, how I've been on Forbes magazine, how I've gone on TV, how I've done everything I've done and all my success, and I said through asking, because if you think about it, asking is a form of gratitude. When you ask, you're allowing somebody to give back to you. And especially as women, and especially what you just mentioned earlier, growing up, we're domesticated. We're told asking is rude. Or in our cultures, depending upon the culture that we were raised in, that, don't ask, children are to be seen, not heard.
Oh, my.
And people don't ask. But if you don't ask, you don't get.
That's exactly right.
And so how I've been successful on social media and in business, think about it, is a friend request on social media is an ask. And most people aren't bold enough to go out on social media and ask big. And what I did, I just went out there and I asked afraid. So I want people to live the life not that they deserve, because deserve has a negative connotation, but that they want.
Entitlements, right?
Yes, that they want. Especially we have 2019 coming up, that we all deserve the life that we want.
What are some tips that you would advise as we're like making a list of things we want to ask for? What's the approach? What would you recommend? How should we approach people as we're asking for these big, huge favors or a job opportunity?
Right.
Whatever it may be.
Asking afraid. It's like we're afraid to ask for the promotion we deserve, the money we deserve, the relationship we deserve, the respect we deserve, and just do it, because most people will say yes to you because somebody said yes to them. And it's really all mindset. I mean, a lot of it is mindset. It comes from what I said earlier, how we were raised, how we were domesticated, even the media. You know, personally, this might sound bad, but I don't watch TV. I don't get into the politics because a lot of people will make excuses and then say, oh, they can't ask for this because of the economy, or, oh, I might lose my job, but just to do it afraid. And I mean, you know, it starts even on social media with business, with a friend request. You know, you can change your whole life.
You know, Bardi, one of the problems I have is I expect people to ask me for stuff, and that's okay. But I don't ask. I'm one of those people. There's a lot of us in the world, actually. I think it's totally normal for someone to ask me for something, and I usually do it.
But you have a problem asking.
Correct.
The other flip side is people have a problem receiving. And like I said, so asking, as I said before, is a form of gratitude. When you ask, you're allowing someone to give back. A lot of us have a problem receiving. We don't feel like we deserve it. Wow. You know, based on how we're raised. But you do, it's not about deserving, but also wanting it.
Another challenge that I think some people may experience is receiving a no. How do you overcome that? You know, I think it's the fear of rejection. But you're asking, they say, and someone replies no. How do you overcome that so that you can build up your confidence again to ask another person or go after that big thing?
You know what's so funny is I train a lot of corporations and a lot of companies how to implement gratitude and asking in their, you know, whether it's a small business or a big business. And as far as a no, I've never had anyone tell me no.
Oh, were you lucky?
Which is, no, as far as in my industry,
okay.
You know, I've had people say, I'll think about it, but it's like you have to, what I tell people is tell them that the investment is in them, not in you. Like if you're in sales and business, is people say, well, I have to think about it, or, you know, I don't have the money, that they need to remember the investment is in themselves, not in, you know, the service that they're hiring. You know, but as far as the no goes, I mean, just, you know, build relationships with the person, you know, engage with them. Don't look at the person as what they can do for you or what you can do for them. Give value to them, you know.
Bring something to the table.
Bring something to the table and maybe come back around and revisit that situation. But a lot of people, I work with a lot of musicians, and, you know, they're trying to promote their CDs and so forth, and they constantly get no's. But it's not what you say, it's how you say it. So I think that's the answer to your question. It's not what you say, but how you say it.
The delivery, the presentation, and the message.
Exactly.
So, Bardi, the power of asking shows you that you should never give up on your dreams and goals just because times are tough, or especially this part, someone planted a negative seed in your head.
Yeah.
Did anyone ever do that to you?
Yes. Actually, you know, my family, my dad's side of the family is Russian, and we were told children would be seen, not heard. You sat there and you just be quiet. And that asking was rude. And so, you know, I learned at a older age that, you know, I was going to ask, and I was going to ask boldly. Became very blunt, and it worked well. I mean, but you know, yeah, somebody did plant a negative seed.
Are you Texan?
Yes.
Oh,
I was born
so
in
am
Texas,
I.
raised in Hawaii.
Okay, where were you born in Texas?
Allen, Texas, north of Dallas.
Yeah, I lived in Texas for 2 years.
Okay,
I caught the
Texas.
accent. Our co-host right here is
my
also
Texan
a proud
doesn't
Texan.
go away.
So before you leave us, we always ask our, we always ask our guests to give their, 15-second advice.
15-second is do it afraid. I mean, seriously. I mean, as a female, you know, I've had a lot of intimidation by people of notoriety, and just to ask. I mean, to put yourself out there, especially on social media. I mean, I don't say this stuff to impress people, but to impress upon them. You know, how I've gotten in Forbes magazine, how I've gotten on TV. Even Michael Beckwith from The Secret wrote the foreword of my book. All the amazing things that have happened to me is because I asked, which is a form of gratitude, and I keep saying that, but to implement asking and gratitude in their life, in their business, and don't come across as salesy. Because if you come across as salesy, people aren't going to want to do business with you.
Well, Bardi, leave that copy of the book. It's going to make it onto my nightstand. I have it. Anyway, Bardi Toto, The Power of Asking, creating all that you want. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Bardi. Our next guest is one of my good friends, Angelina Darrisaw Cheeks. She's the CEO and founder of the C-Suite Coach, which I'm really interested to learn more about, David. And we were chatting about it earlier.
Yeah, we all want to get into the C-Suite.
Absolutely.
That sounds comfortable.
We want to take it up a couple of notches in our career. Hi, Angelina.
Hi, how you doing?
Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Of course.
Angelina, you look great. I noticed you in the green room.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, so is having the look part of getting into the C-Suite as well?
I think that any look can get you into the C-suite. It really should be focused on what your business acumen is and how well you articulate your value. However, I always advocate for folks to be a reflection of how they want to be seen and be as polished as possible. But I don't think that we should subscribe to this notion that you have to have a look to be C-suite ready.
No, your own look.
Your own look.
Owning your own, being genuine and authentic in that. So tell us a little bit more about your company, C-Suite Coach.
Yeah, so C-Suite Coach, the mission is really to make the C-suite more reflective of the workforce, and we do that in two ways. By preparing diverse talent to succeed at work through coaching and programs, talent development, offsites, retreats, and then also through equipping small business owners to have a company that scales where their C-suite is closer to what a Fortune 1000 C-suite looks like.
So never mind the C-suite, Angelina. A lot of these tech companies just aren't diverse at all. Why do you think that is?
I think it is where we're looking at pipeline is a big challenge. We like, and that's back to that point about what should leadership look like. We like people that look like us. And when we don't see that reflection, sometimes we question if they're able to do work the way we do work.
Interesting.
So that's one big piece of it.
So let's talk about the new year is right around the corner and the work that you're doing to prepare entrepreneurs to get back on track for the start of a new year.
I think we all need to get back on track.
We all do, but entrepreneurs in particular.
Yeah, so, I'm totally aligned with what Bardi said. Where we need to start is asking for big things. We need to be making sure that we're prioritizing our value and making sure that we're not giving out discounts in 2019, really knowing the value of your product or your service and being clear on what that value is so you're charging for it appropriately. That's one thing for sure.
That's always difficult. Sometimes people ask me for advice, or Angelina, I'm sure people ask you all the time for advice, and you're very specific in making sure your time is compensated. So entrepreneurs are, I think, just getting in the mindset of knowing that their information, their product, their service should be compensated because they're professionals too. I know that can be sometimes a challenge.
Yeah, I think entrepreneurship really gets glamorized as like this fun thing where you can work from beaches and all of that. I'm not going to say I've never done that.
You've done that. I know you've done that.
I'm not going to say I've never done that. But I will say that if you want a successful business in 2019, you have to run it like a business. That means you need hours, you need a schedule, your clients can't call you any time of the night. If you get into that habit, you're not running it like a business. So that's probably, in my years, the biggest takeaway is making sure that I set a schedule that's reflective of when I want my clients to communicate with me.
You have such an interesting resume, and something stands out to me.
Okay, tell me.
Pantene brand ambassador, that lovely hair of yours. Tell us about that experience and how that kind of infused the rest of your career.
Well, I definitely...
No pun intended.
Oh, sure. I definitely believe that in living life fully, and that's just always been a part of the way I look at life, right? And I had an opportunity to... I actually went for a competition to be my brand ambassador for My Black is Beautiful and Pantene. And I competed to show the service I was doing in my community, and they recognized it. It was community voted, and I was selected. And that was such an awesome experience because as a leader, as a CEO, even if you don't want to be a salesperson, even if you don't want to be in the front, you have to be because you're reflecting your business.
So visibility is a part of it?
Visibility is definitely a part of it, and you can't run away from that as a leader.
Let's talk about another big brand. Angelina is affiliated with Google.
Oh.
Tell us about your work
No
with
big
Google.
deal,
Oh, no
Google.
big deal. We just use it a million times a day. But tell us about your work with Google as a digital coach.
Yeah, so C-Suite Coach helps run the Google, one of Google's programs, which is around small business entrepreneurship and really bridging the digital divide to make sure small business owners from diverse backgrounds have access to Google tools, resources to help them scale. So this year in 2018, the program, which is in 8 cities, Austin, Atlanta, Texas for you, Austin, Atlanta, Chicago, Detroit, DC, Miami, LA, and New York.
All the important ones.
All the important cities. We've hit 15,000 diverse small business owners and over 300 in-person workshops. And in those experiences, we are touching, offering like individual and group coaching to help these businesses scale and grow.
I've been tracking some of your activity on social media. You hosted a Google pop-up shop yesterday.
Yes.
Where was that?
It was in Soho, right?
Yeah, so
And
actually
That sounds way
it's
too
in
hip.
Soho through 12/31. You can go on by. It's so fun in there.
And so you're engaging entrepreneurs and influencers with like new gadgets, right? Like tell us about
we're
that.
trying to make sure that folks understand that technology can be inclusive. It can also be really fun and exciting. Augmented reality. We did some experiments with augmented reality yesterday with AI and really just getting diverse communities to see where we fit into this space.
Okay, so before we let you go, what is your advice to, we'll focus on females since we have a female for
okay.
For females who are, and I know several in my head, some of my friends tell me, like, I'm right there and I'm well positioned to get into the corporate suite and be in leadership, but I need that final step. What is your advice to those people?
My advice would be get really good at explaining what you do well and articulating your value to the business. And the clearer you are on what you contribute and how you do it, the better it is for everyone else around you who wants to understand how they can be propelling you forward.
Wow, I
So
might have to send that clip of
mastering your elevator pitch, right?
Yes.
Angelina, thank you so much
Thank you for having
joining
me.
us. It was
Thank
such a
you.
pleasure interviewing one of my friends.
the very glamorous friends
Yes.
you have,
Oh, I have a
Lyndsay.
glam squad of
glam
friends.
squad. You have your own Instagram account. So anyway, on to our next guest. We want to welcome Emmanuel Straschnov. He's the founder of Bubble.
Welcome, Emmanuel.
Thank you very much for
Really
having
curious.
me.
You're welcome. Curious to know about this bubble. What is this idea?
So it's a new way to program without code. We basically started.
Yay! Yeah,
'Cause
I
we don't know how
can't
to
code a line
code.
of code now.
Right, this is something that has to happen because coding is very tedious. And so what we saw is that, building software has been done with code for the last 30 years. And this is something that's very strange because in the meantime, everything in computing has gone from, a command line to a visual interface, like MS-DOS, Windows, these kind of like transitions. And that hasn't happened with code yet. So we're trying to be that tool to define that new standard, basically.
So how does it work? How do you code without code?
So you don't code, you program. So that's an
Okay.
important distinction. Like coding, basically what we're saying is that programming and coding are two different things. So how does it work? Well, as you would expect, actually, you drag and drop your interface. You draw, if you think about, you can build something as Airbnb, for instance, on Bubble. So you're going to have the front page, you're going to have a main feature, and then, a sign up button. So you design all these things, and then the programming happens instead of writing code. You basically build what we call in our language workflows, which is a way to say when the user clicks here, do this, do that. And so the trick is, because there is code somewhere, right? But we wrote it, is that those elementary bricks that you can use on your page or on your workflows are built by us, and they're built in a way that you can assemble them in
Web
whichever
page
way
So
you
this
like.
is
Legos,
this is
yeah.
like one website development 101, right? Very user friendly.
Right, but it's more advanced websites that's usually what you can do today because you already have some tools to build some websites, but it's going to be a blog or something where you push your own content. What we're talking about on our platform is really building something as complicated as Twitter or Facebook in terms of functionality.
Okay, so we're taking it to the next level, not just a
Exactly.
simple blog,
Right.
but a more
because
advanced
that has already
site.
been done.
Okay.
If you want to start a company today, for instance, a marketplace to have two kind of people sell each other things, you would have to hire engineers today or use something like Bubble, and Bubble is probably the only tool on the market right now to do so without engineers.
Well, you made it into Y Combinator. That's a big deal.
No, we did not. Actually, it's our customers did.
Your customers got into Y Combinator, which is actually even more flattering.
Yes, especially because Y Combinator is known to have this idea, at least a few years ago, where they would say a team without engineers won't go too far, and they mostly want team with engineers. And now they take teams that are building things on Bubble, which is pretty cool.
You have been all over the place here. You worked for the French Ministry of Education. Great minds think alike.
And the CEO of Prada.
Special assistant to the CEO of Prada.
Right.
I graduated from Harvard Business School. When do you sleep, sir?
Well, I'm not as young as I look, you know. Let's say it took me a few years to figure out what I wanted to do. And so I actually started Bubble with my business partner, Josh, pretty late. I was 29 when I started. You know?
Oh, so late.
Okay,
So I did a lot.
so late. You were born in Paris.
Yep.
Je parle français un peu. That's all you're going to get. I'm a little rusty in French there,
I'm
but
very impressed,
I was just curious to know, how you transitioned from Europe and what made you want to come to New York.
Oh, it's actually business school. So,
Okay.
Long story short, after France, I actually moved to China for about 3 years, working in consulting there. And then I wanted to leave China. I wasn't ready to go home. And so I applied to Harvard and got into a business school for my MBA.
Very
That's great.
impressive.
And then I actually stayed. I met Josh, so my business partner, Joshua Has. We got connected to mutual friends, part of the Harvard network. And he actually had already the idea, was looking for a co-founder. And we actually partnered after our first coffee. So that was a...
So where are you?
For one date.
So you have 200,000 users.
Right.
You're quite large and growing pretty fast, aren't
We're growing pretty fast. We're actually doubling in revenue every year right now, hoping that we'll go a little bit faster. I mean, I think the market opportunity ahead of us is gigantic. Like the people that we do what we're trying to do right, we basically define a new standard of programming and building software, and so the sky is the limit. So while we're growing fast, we're still pretty far from our goal. But yeah, growth has been good. 220,000 users, which is starting to become like a real community. Like the community aspect for us is extremely important because there is a little bit of a learning curve. Like I'm not going to say, you're going to build something in 5 minutes. You're going to learn it in like maybe 2-3 hours, and then it might take a week or 2 weeks to build something that would take 3 months otherwise with engineers. But so people need to help each other, and so we've built this community online where people keep asking and answering questions to a point this month where the average response time when you post something on the forum is about 10 minutes. So you ask something, 10 minutes later, someone will jump in and help you, which is even more meaningful than the number of users we have.
This is growing rapidly. Where do you see Bubble headed in like the next 5 years?
Great name, by the way. Everyone loves Bubble.
I know, Bubble. It's
That's
really catchy. It is.
Easy to remember, yeah.
Thank you. Well, we want to become the next programming standard. The way we want to do it is to do that through entrepreneurs, individuals, startups, and small businesses instead of going too soon into large corporations. Because I really think if a revolution like that has to happen, it will happen through the people. Like, if in school, in colleges, for instance, people start using Bubble actively, they will get us naturally everywhere where they go. So in 5 years, what I'm hoping we have to be, and I think we will be the standard for like individual small businesses and startups to build things, and we'll start making a dent in the enterprise world.
That is quite a lofty goal there, Emmanuel.
Yeah, well, I hope I'll come back in 5 years and see how that goes.
Well, Emmanuel from Bubble, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us today.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci.
Our next guest is Aimee Irwin. She's the Vice President of Strategy for Marketing Services at Experian, a company
we all depend on for our credit scores.
That's
Hi,
right.
Aimee. How you doing?
Oh, good. How are you? It's nice to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Welcome to the warm studio. It's very cold outside.
Thank you. Yes, it is.
Absolutely. So tell us about the work that you do at Experian.
Sure. Well, Experian, the division that I work in at Experian, really helps marketers better understand their consumers and make better marketing decisions. So, and a lot of that is based on consumer data.
Of course.
Data. That's like every company is just focused on data. So specifically, tell us about some of the initiatives or projects that Experian has rolled out.
Sure. So what Experian has is essentially a file on pretty much every household in the U.S. We can understand things like, age and gender, presence of children, sometimes interests, and that allows marketers to do, some interesting things when you think about what's happening in television, for example. And traditionally, we all, went to go watch TV at 5 o'clock for the news, and everybody in the U.S. saw the same ad, effectively, unless it was a local ad. And now you can, in any device, pick up and watch whatever you want at any time. And that also means that the advertising can be more relevant and more targeted to you. So I live in a house with, I have 3 boys that play hockey.
Okay.
And my next door neighbors have 3 girls that, do ballet or whatever girls do.
I was going to say dance class.
And yes. So I can get the ads that are relevant to me, and they can get the ads that are relevant to them. And Experian really partners with marketers to help them, to help them do that, to help them understand their consumers and then deliver relevant messages.
So you guys were a credit reference firm, and now you've become a data software business. What is the difference?
So we do have a big credit business, and you've probably seen our ads on television. Yes. We help consumers understand what their credit is, protect their data, but at our core, we're really a data company. There's data that feeds credit and consumer protection.
Because your score ultimately comes from data, correct?
It does. It does, absolutely. And then we have a whole fraud and ID division as well, which helps protect banks and other entities from fraudulent activity. And really at the core, again, is the data, and identity is really important too, understanding consumers across the many, many different devices that we operate in today.
So you're targeting startups. Is that like one of your, I guess you could say, audiences?
Yeah, I would say our audiences from Experian Marketing Services division, we work a lot with brands, so big brands. So think like retailers, auto. So we have transaction data on the auto side. Or I should say registration data when people register their car.
That's easily accessible data.
Exactly.
I bought a Ford Taurus, which doesn't exist anymore, a BMW 3 Series in Akron, Ohio. You know exactly what type of car and who owns it.
Exactly. We know who owns it, and then we help marketers. So auto is a great example. Think about how you used to buy a car. You went to a couple dealers, and then you bought a car. But now you go online, you literally research, buy a car, then maybe
you print out the price they give you before you get to the dealership and just hand them the sheet of paper and just say this.
Great for consumers, right?
Right.
You have all this more information that you didn't used to have. But it also is an opportunity for marketers to insert messages to you along your path to purchase. So that maybe you didn't know that if you were looking at a particular SUV, that maybe another one would better fit.
What's another good example? Because autos are kind of on their way out. I think I already bought my last car.
I know. Isn't that interesting?
Yes, absolutely. And that, of course, based on data, we can see that, if you talk to today's 16-year-olds, they're not really interested in owning cars.
They aren't interested in owning cars. And if you talk to, say, 16-year-olds, they're also they're using their phone while they're watching TV. So you're ending up with all these different ways to influence someone on the path to purchase, even if it's not an auto. Let's say it's your next
house,
mobile
hopefully,
phone,
or my house. People my age
exactly.
want home ownership, the American dream, etc.
Exactly.
The biggest
You need
purchase
credit
of our
for that,
lives.
by the way.
Of course.
Yep.
Talk to us about how social media has really transformed the landscape overall for marketing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So social media is really interesting because you have channels that you can actually, as a marketer or as a brand, you can have a presence on social media of your own, and you can have influencers, and you can partner with celebrities and other things in social media that can really transform your brand. But then you can also just advertise in social media. And as we've all seen in our Facebook feeds, if you look at a product somewhere else,
it's going to
pops up in Facebook.
I literally just looked at those shoes, and it's in my feed.
It's funny. It's not advanced.
Does that make you buy them more?
No, it doesn't.
No.
It's a reminder. It's like a constant reminder. But if I've already made my decision to purchase or not, my mind is made
What's
up.
weird too is after I buy it, it keeps on showing it to me, and it's like, no. I already bought that. I already booked that vacation.
That's where the data and the transaction data comes in. We should be better about that as marketers.
Yeah, you say, this happened already.
Right,
yeah.
Now that you bought, and then we always use the example, now that you already bought the tent to go camping, you got to buy, the hiking boots or the next
flashlight
thing,
and all the supplies and tools.
So, Aimee, Experian's a company that's been around for a long time. There are a lot of companies in this similar situation, and they are going to have to pivot. You guys are a bit ahead of the curve here, deciding to rebrand yourself. Do you think this is something we're going to see in every type of business?
I think businesses evolve as technology evolves, and some businesses are respond sooner to that than others. From a technology perspective, when we think about like the proliferation of devices, think about like Internet of Things, right? All of a sudden, we're not just understanding data that's coming in from your mobile phone and your desktop computer, but we're also trying to understand things coming in from all sorts of devices. I think as businesses start to adapt to this new world, you end up with a lot of interesting things to think about if you can take advantage of them in the right way and always be compliant from a consumer privacy standpoint, and always respect the fact that we're in.
That's a big deal. That's a whole different segment.
Right,
yes.
We have this data because the consumers trust us with it, and we need to do the right thing with it, and we need to make the world better for consumers.
I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
It should be easy for us.
Yeah.
Easier, rather.
Yeah.
Well, Aimee, thanks for coming here today.
Thank you.
Aimee with Experian.
Absolutely. So anyway, our next guest is Ben Trenda. He's the founder of Goodtalk.
Many questions about this. Just curious to know how it works. Welcome, Ben. Thanks for joining us.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely. What is Goodtalk? What is the Goodtalk app, I should say?
So Goodtalk is a platform that allows you to take a group text message conversation and turn it into a broadcast so that other people can follow along like a fly on the wall. They can listen to the conversation. They can submit questions for screening. They can like things. But they can't jump right into the conversation and interrupt what you're doing.
So if I'm texting with David and some producers, we can broadcast our group chat through which mediums?
So here's how it works. We could have this conversation, for example, over text message. And the way that it works is I initiate it, enter you get a text message, I get a text message. As soon as all three of us respond to that text message, the conversation goes live, meaning that conversation now lives both on our phones, like a normal text, but it also lives on our platform, which you can access either through our iOS and Android apps or through our public webpage, or the content is also portable, so you could put it on boldtv.com, you could put it on your Twitter, you could put it on your Instagram, your app, wherever it's relevant, wherever your audience already is. This is just a way for people to have conversations in public like we do on television, like we do on radio, like we do on stage, without everybody else piling into the conversation like what happens on social media.
It's really interesting because one of the things that I was most surprised about the new economy is that people watch gamers play. And this reminds me of that in the sense that I never thought there would be an audience for people watching other people interact.
LeBron and Michael, there we go.
So we like witnessing other people's interactions.
We do. I think this is actually the primary use case of traditional media. And you watch television and you see conversations. Even if you're watching a football game, you hear two people talking about the game. Most of radio, most podcasts. But if you look at the major internet platforms, they weren't designed for that use case. They were designed for everyone to have a voice in every conversation, which is cool. It's very democratic and good for the world in some ways. But it's really bad for a good conversation, because there is no line of distinction between people who have, expert knowledge of that specific topic and those who merely have an opinion or those who want to troll.
And it gets messy really fast.
I can imagine.
That's right.
Are you targeting like everyday consumers, brands, or groups, organizations? Who is your target audience?
So we built this because we wanted there to be more intelligent conversations in media in general, very similar to what you're doing here. You're tackling that problem in a different way. We thought, look, there's only 50 million people who listen to podcasts. Podcasts are a pretty good way to do this, but podcasts are still kind of hard to create. They're still kind of hard to consume. I listen to a few podcasts, but I can't listen to 20 podcasts. And this is a way to reach just about everybody with a mobile phone. Everybody already knows how to text. We already have SMS, and we spend more than twice as much time in text than we do on all social media platforms combined. So if you want to tackle this problem, text is a pretty good place to start. Now, to start this, though, we really started with subject matter experts. We've got several hundred people that you would now consider high profile. They're either on television, they're on radio, they're journalists. We even have Carrie Sheffield from Bold on the platform. And these conversations are pretty interesting. Now we're coming out of stealth mode. We're growing 135% month over month. Now we've got tens of thousands of people seeing this content out there in the wild, wherever it belongs. And now we've just opened it up so that anyone can come in and start a conversation about something that they care about.
So let's talk about when you open up things, you're opening up the Pandora's box. What type of conversations are going to end up on your platform?
And is there a filter?
Yeah, good questions. So if it were the three of us in the conversation, we would be able to decide who gets in and what content gets in. That's it. No one else can just jump in. So it's self-filtering in that way. Also, our platform curates the very best of the conversation and makes them publicly searchable. But a lot of the stuff that happens on the platform is not publicly searchable. You would have to discover it somewhere. If we were to start a conversation, we could put it on our Twitter, LinkedIn,
and then
Instagram, and people can come in and find that.
So there's no feed when I log in?
There is. If you use our apps, there is. But we've designed this, and most companies like this are built in Silicon Valley, and they're designed to kind of capture your data and keep you in a closed wall environment. We didn't want to take that approach. We wanted to take the approach that this is a platform for people to create this great conversational content. You can do that via text message, or you can use our apps if you want to, but you don't have to. Likewise, you don't need our apps to consume the content because it can live wherever it needs to live.
Wow.
Right.
It's a very out-of-the-box idea, and your team
neat.
was people from Yahoo, ClearPass, AOL, Time Warner, Viacom, Apple. A lot of lessons learned from those. So did you feel like your team was like, I've dealt with this problem before, here's what I think, here's what we did wrong, here's what we can do better?
And the solution.
A little bit. I've always been good at recruiting, and I think I'm really lucky in this case to have a CTO from Stanford, ClassPass, Evernote, and I've got one of my co-founders used to produce television shows, designer from Apple. So it's a good team, but it's a new problem. What's similar to other companies that we've built is it's a business that is generating network effects, meaning in a network, every new entrant makes the platform a little bit better for everyone else. So the hardest part about that is how do you create value for those first users? Imagine being the first seller on eBay or the first buyer on eBay before there was anything there. It's an awkward
growth phase for anyone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we've tackled that problem a few ways before, and we took a page out of that playbook. We've done it a little bit differently this time, but we really started by trying to create a lot of value for content creators. And now that we're doing that, and we've got great content on the platform, people are coming in and generating more content.
Definitely going to check that out.
Yeah.
New approach to communicating.
I got to follow Carrie.
You got to follow Carrie for sure.
Ben, thank you so much, Ben.
Thanks for having me.
Check out the Goodtalk app. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Our next guest is joining us via Skype. His name is John Underkoffler, and he's the CEO of Oblong Industries.
Welcome, John. Are you there?
I am. Hello, and thanks for having me.
That's a great background,
That is
John.
cool.
Sometimes our Skype guests don't get the memo about their background.
That's where I happen to be sitting today. Thanks.
John, so tell us about the work you do with Oblong.
Well, Oblong is a technology and design company. We've been around for about 10 years. We were born actually out of Minority Report, the film, the 2002 Spielberg film, for which I served as the technology advisor. And in particular, I designed all of the gestural technology, the gestural user interface sequences and tech designs for the film. And we got our start bringing that stuff to life. But over the years, as we launched product after product, we've turned into really a kind of advanced UI and collaboration company with the idea that collaboration is the huge problem that computers haven't ever solved. Every computer you've ever used, whether it's a laptop or a smartphone or a tablet, is for one person at a time, you. And so what we make today is a product called Mezzanine. It's like a giant computer desktop that exists on multiple screens around a workspace, an office, a conference room. That's a good picture of Mezzanine right there. And what it lets you do is put all your stuff up there. Everyone from any location can put up applications, data, documents. So the team is sort of forming a hive mind. Everyone's seeing the same thing at the same time in the same way. And that's how work gets done.
So you have to think outside of the box. Imagine you're involved in these movies and you have to tell them about stuff that hasn't happened yet. Did that type of thinking infuse the way you came up with Mezzanine?
It absolutely did. And for at least some of us who work in tech, I mean, half the proposition is kind of irritation at the way things work now. And the flip side of that, the positive side, is how would I like to work? What would I like it to be? And you bring all the stuff that you've done up until that point, including sometimes what you've done for movies, and it turns into something really transformative. I think that's what's happened with Mezzanine for sure.
John, talk to us about your collaboration with Iron Man. That's exciting.
Well, right. So I'd gone into retirement, as it were, being an advisor for Hollywood films. I'd just done a couple. Done Minority Report and The Hulk, where I met my wife, and I figured that's as good a note to end on as any. But when they came to me and said, "Okay, we're going to do this thing. It's going to really be the beginning of a new universe. We're working with Robert Downey Jr." I had to come out of retirement and do one last job, and it was hugely rewarding. Not least because Robert is so directly involved in figuring out the tech, figuring out the character. What would Tony Stark actually be doing? What would he use? How would he work? And so collaborating with him and collaborating with the production designer in the art department was kind of an amazing thing, because you basically have to build a set of ideas, a set of technologies, a set of UI designs that's pretty close to the real world, so that no one looks at it and says, "Oh, well, that's just magic," right? Because Tony Stark is he's the superhero who has no superpowers. He's just got his brain and his engineering skills, and he builds his own tools. So that's, in a way, kind of a dream job for someone who builds tools and UIs to begin with.
So, John, one of these articles I read not too long ago talked about Minority Report and technology and things they got wrong and things they got right. So how do you do it? How do you sit down and say, okay, we're gonna blow people's heads off or blow people's heads up with this technology, but it can't be too crazy, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a great question. That's the key question that you have to sort of solve and internalize if you want to make stuff believable. So anyone can say, okay, we've got a bunch of holograms floating in midair, blah, blah, blah. You can invent gadgets and pieces of technology. But if you do two things, if you say, well, how would all this stuff fit together? How does one universe contain all of this stuff, not as a kind of random assemblage, but as a bunch of technology that advanced from where we are today to where we might be able to get tomorrow? If you do those two things at the same time, then you end up with something that's very realistic. And just to take one example, in a holographic scene, I fought really hard to say, well, this is sort of gray market technology. It's the scene when Tom Cruise is at home. He's mourning the loss of his child and his family. He's looking at these holographic home movies, but it's kind of new technology. It's not really there yet. And I said, let's make it look like VHS tapes from 1979 or 1981. It's kind of fuzzy around the edges and so forth. So that question of, like, great, we've got this new tech, but what are the ways it doesn't work? What are the ways it backfires? What are the ways it doesn't quite get to that level of perfection that would ordinarily be the way you design things for movies? That's the key.
John, how do you tap into that part of your brain that takes you into the future? There's a lot of creativity involved, but how do you go there? What inspires that for you?
Yeah, I can't think of the future. I can barely think of the present,
I can't think about the next hour.
I think, for me, it's always about collisions. It's about deliberately colliding a bunch of different sources that don't normally come together. Collide what you know about movies with what you know about architecture, with maybe what you know about music and dance, with what you know about politics, and out of that can come really brand new and very valuable designs for real world systems. And if you invert some of that and you're designing for the movies, you want to pull in pieces that don't normally get accessed. So it's about sort of widening the scope and going to the library, right? If people still anymore.
Do we still go to the library?
Yeah, the libraries are pretty to walk by. So you're saying you mix art with science, don't you?
And dance.
That's really science alone has never been able to solve very much.
Oh, don't tell the scientists that. So anyway, John, for all our young listeners here, what's your advice for them? Because you've made quite a career for yourself in a space that people don't really talk about in elementary school. So how do we get into what you're into?
Well, I mean, everyone and anyone would say, follow your passion, and I think that's important. But part of following your passion is not listening to a bunch of keywords, buzzwords that you might hear bandied about. I mean, we know the list from 2018. I don't know if it's been updated for 2019, but in 2018, it's AI, it's self-driving cars, it's blockchain, it's VR and AR. There's a few others. And so we can all repeat that, but what are the other things? The world is big, and actually there's way more tech companies and way more stuff getting developed than fits in that small number of buzzwords. So, just in my immediate proximity, amazing companies like Looking Glass that is about to release an actual holographic or holographic equivalent device so that people can think of ideas and build them in 3D and look at them. Companies like Misty Robotics is about to release what they think of as, the Apple II Plus equivalent for robots. all of these are learning opportunities. All of these are design opportunities. So as a young person, get your hands on stuff that you can't imagine living without. Get frustrated with the stuff it doesn't do, and then build the next step.
How about we just start with the Rubik's Cube?
Yeah, I can't solve those.
Yeah, I mean, that was from our generation. Like, that's what we had to get our hands on.
For that, yes, it's true.
Well, anyway, John, you've been a model Skype guest. If everyone was like you, we'd let everyone Skype in. So thank you so much.
Thank you, John. It was great talking to you.
Good to be there in person. We'll do it all again soon.
Okay.
He is in technology, so
Yeah.
the
MIT.
Skype had to work out.
Right.
So, yeah.
For our next segment, we have Chris Fay. He's the founder of Big Bang Health.
How you doing, Chris? Good afternoon.
Hey, terrific. Thank you very much, David and Lyndsay, for having me on today. I appreciate that.
So absolutely. Healthcare costs is something that bedevils us, the economy, our public policy, everything you're proposing. How do we use artificial intelligence to lower healthcare costs?
And I'm going to give you your own memento.
Oh, thank you. I was wondering what you brought us presents.
Yeah, you get a T-Rex.
Is your health plan a dinosaur?
Probably.
Probably.
My health plan is definitely a dinosaur.
That's nice. Thank
That's
you.
exactly what we're attacking in the market, and I will explain this as we go through the next few. Thank you again for letting me be on here. I really appreciate it. We're a national health plan for employers. Millennials are the biggest generation coming down, and we are focused. In fact, we have a TV spot, maybe you've seen it before, that's really targeting the millennial conversation. But as an employer-focused health plan, as we ask the question, is your health plan a dinosaur? Most of our interaction with health plans is not good.
It's very bad.
And we have negative experiences with even trying to choose our healthcare plan. Yeah.
Well, I think if I could to walk you through a couple of important stats here, and we'll talk about AI's influence in health plans. But number one, Kaiser did a study, said 9 out of 10 people do not understand how healthcare works. They don't. 9 out of 10. It's probably 10 out of 10, but they said 9 out of 10. So people don't understand how it works.
Don't get it. Mm-hmm.
The Employee Benefit News did a study of employees, which said that 6 out of 7 employees don't understand how their benefits work. So if you have a population that doesn't understand how healthcare works, and then you don't understand how your benefits work, this new world of what they call consumer-driven healthcare, let's throw a bunch of people that don't know what they're doing into the mix of the most complex business there is, which is healthcare. And what we've attempted to do at Big Bang Health is to go back to the beginning. That's our name. And if you go to bigbanghealth.com, you'll see a couple of great short video clips, 40 seconds, which we went back to the beginning and said, let's reorganize how you do this. And then take this to the employer market, particularly the small employer market, which has been underserved and over cost and undervalue forever. I've been in this business for 40 years now. I know I don't look that old, and I'm probably the only guy in your show today with a lot of wisdom, with a tie, but I do know what I'm talking about, and I think it's important that, and think about this from your viewers, your staff, your family, your friends, your colleagues. Number one, when you say healthcare, well, you're both have great health, I can imagine, so you're not going to access your health much. Maybe you get a vaccination or you get a flu shot, you go to your doctor, you call for something quick. You have something complex wrong with you, that's where the nightmare begins, and where we really think we can help from a both value-based as well as cost-based. And here's the 3 areas. Number one, 1 out of 5 diagnoses in this country are wrong. That's a Mayo Clinic study. 1 out of 5, 20%. Somebody tells you you have something terrible, the odds are 4 out of 5 you may be right and 1 out of 5 wrong. What happens then is this, it costs the United States about $700 billion to $1 trillion in this misdiagnosis world. Now, David, let me ask you, if somebody misdiagnosed you, 1 out of 5 misdiagnosis, what we try to correct and use people and technology to do so. The second thing that's important to understand is that if you are correctly diagnosed, and remember, share this, call me anytime. If you, your family, your friends, colleague have a problem, call me, I'll help you. If you're one of the 4 out of 5 who are correctly diagnosed, the odds of you actually getting the proper evidence-based care and managing that condition, let's call it diabetes, let's call it COPD, let's call it heart disease, whatever. The odds of you getting the right directions, instructions, care, 50-50.
Yeesh.
Goodness.
Okay, what does it need? It needs a big bang. We need to start this. We need to rewrite this scenario. And that's what we've done in using AI technology to help in the diagnosis situation as well as the better management of the people with the proper conditions. All of this from a person's standpoint is all about money and quality of life, because number one, you want to be as healthy as you can. But at the end of the day, this is not a Republican problem. This is not a Democrat problem. This is a people issue, because policy is not what we're talking about. We're talking about, the facts of the matter are 1 in 5 misdiagnosis, the 50-50 odds of getting the right care. And then when you take a look at this issue of mental health on the news now, right, the opioid crisis, everything else, people with mental health issues and substance abuse issues have 3 times the hospitalization rate. 3 times. Why? Well, it's all in the mind. So what I'm trying to weave together for you is that much as all your great guests have talked about, a new way of disrupt, to innovate, you have to take a piece of paper, plain paper, and if you just map this out, what should we do? Get the right information to help make the right decisions, to get you to the best provider at the best price. That's called value-based pricing.
That's where the cost savings come in, of
Bingo.
course.
Yes, absolutely. And so, again, we have encouraged anyone. We have a really cool component called mission control. Somebody calls you and says you have ovarian cancer. The slide reads on ovarian cancer pathology, or sometimes, again, 20% in error. You may not have that. We have this thing called mission control, where you've got a nurse, highly skilled nurse, who's going to help you navigate. Let's figure out, do you really have this? And then let's figure out where you live and who is the best provider at the best price, and we help negotiate that price. But it's all based on quality, because what you want is results.
Your role is that of an advocate.
We are a complete health plan replacement, a national health plan. We're available in all 50 states. But we take so what does that mean? Are we like the rest? No, we're not a dinosaur. We said, let's become an advocate.
Are your plans comparable in cost to, the ones I'm thinking of, United Healthcare, Blue Cross Blue Shield? Yeah.
Yeah, these are all the companies that we're going up against with something new and disruptive. And you've seen what happened to companies like Sears that thought they were the cat's meow.
Yeah, they're no longer around.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Some of these companies, the big ones you've mentioned, have been around for a long, long time.
Long time.
I'd like to think that we came up with a new approach. And I've been building health plans and health companies ever since I got out of college. And have a lot of great people with me that understand how the New World Order is finally coming to healthcare. And we won't be able to cover all of this today because it's a short clip, but I'd love to come back and give you updates along the way and share with you some of the real clinical data that my brother was, back to the misdiagnosis, my brother was misdiagnosed, had a stroke as a result. He's been paralyzed for 20 years. Cost him $1 million right up front for all the medical spend. He could have been found out. He was one of those misdiagnoses. Somebody said, you got a really bad headache, you got a really bad, and he ends up having a massive stroke. I know just that one scenario that I'm familiar with, having on the misdiagnosis side, and this is happening all over the country every day. Right here in this building, somebody's being misdiagnosed. That's terrible. We want to try to fix that.
Chris, as a takeaway, it's open enrollment season. What would be a takeaway that you can share with our viewers as we wrap?
Well, I think, and there's a couple of pieces of open enrollment. Since this is maybe more millennial skewed, this is workplace, checking out what you actually have. And there are usually several different plans, entities that you can pick from. Typically, their plan designs are very similar. You've got to pay the claim, which is a transactional component of a health plan. But you want to make sure that they have, preventive coverage that's good. I would ask all kinds of questions about this. How do you prevent misdiagnosis? We'd probably tell you we don't really do that. We pay the claims. But, you want a health and wellness component. I believe healthcare is going to which we're going to do is move this into a mind, body, spirit enterprise, because it's not about paying the claim. It's about you. It's about you and what is different about each of you when you then enter the world of healthcare. We had to send a slide. I don't know if we were going to show it or not, but the people that are making the decision about their enrollment right now, and they're going to see all these pieces of paper, and their eyes are going to glaze over, and they're going to ask the person in the next door, "What are you doing?" Well, if there's a high deductible, which means your premium is lower, you're trying to guesstimate what's the right amount of money to pay. Yeah. We help navigate, facilitate, coordinate, not just the financial side of this, but again, back to your question of what should they be looking for, it's the plan design, it's the deductible that they can spend, that they can afford, that's coming out of their pocket, and then making sure that there's a care advocacy component of the health plan so that you can talk to a person. You can't talk to an app to help you through some of the complex things of COPD or congestive heart failure or diabetes. I mean, they can help you with some information, but you need an advocate, a personal care advocate.
Well, I can
and
tell
that's
you this, Chris, we can talk about this. We need to bring you back.
I'm
We have a lot more questions.
We really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us.
Super. And I'm going to leave you with your own dinosaurs.
We appreciate
It's going on my desk. We appreciate it.
They've been fed today. So you feed them every day about noon. Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Chris,
Bye-bye.
with Big Bang Health.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Our final guest is Cheryl Heller. She's the author of the Intergalactic Design Guide, Harnessing the Creative Potential of Social Design.
Oh, I want to know more about this. When I said galactic, I was singing the Beastie Boys song.
Yeah, Intergalactic Planetary.
Yeah.
How you doing, Cheryl?
Welcome, Cheryl.
I'm doing well. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Last but certainly not least.
Tell us
On a Friday
about
afternoon.
On a Friday afternoon. Tell us about your book.
Well, the title was inspired by a wonderful writer named David Orr, who, in a book called Earth and Mind, he said that as Homo sapiens' entry into any intergalactic design competition, our civilization would be tossed out at the qualifying round.
Oh, my.
Oh, my. So,
I believe that was the plot of a Rick and Morty episode, but we did win that.
He wrote this 30 years ago. And it's pretty safe to say we have not gotten better. And he wasn't saying that, education is broken or government is broken or this or that are not right. He was saying that this whole design that we have for how we live is not sustainable.
Wow. In what sense?
In the sense that it is, sorry, my phone is ringing. In the sense that it's toxic, in the sense, look at the issues we have, right? Look, the world is on fire. We're looking at global warming, and we don't know how to act. We don't know how to get together and do something about it.
So how do you harness the creative potential? Like, break it down for us.
The social design process. Think of the relatively the same process that people use to design products, cars or apps or any of the things we know. That same creative process can be applied to solving the big issues of our time. Instead of a small team of experts, you have a process that involves multidisciplinary teams. It involves everyone who's involved. One of the stories in the book is about a man who's brought 20 million people out of poverty. And he has interviewed 3,000 poor people, and he asked them why they're poor, and they always know. And so he's developed products and solutions to help them earn their way to the middle class by listening to them.
Wow. So what is social design? It's designed for people?
You can think about it really literally, right? So there are every human network is a society, right? Whether that's the public society or it's a corporate culture. And think about design being used to strengthen human relationships. So this process teaches people how to collaborate. It teaches them how to communicate. It teaches people how to identify a need and then reframe the problem, sort of not go around in the same circles all the time. So it teaches people the basic skills of the creative process so that they have a sense of agency.
I like that. Identify a need instead of create a need.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I hear that a lot. We need to create a need, and it's like, there's a lot of needs in the world. Can't we just cater to one of those?
Exactly. I got something and I want you to buy it. No, right? Exactly. And I came from many, many years of working with corporations and creating needs.
But corporations are an essential part of solving a lot of problems.
Absolutely.
The private sector is innovative and has the resources and the tools necessary that we need to solve a lot of our societal problems. And the profit motive is insane for them if they figure out how to solve a lot of these systemic problems.
Exactly. And there are wonderful examples of that. So you take Interface Carpet, that is the largest carpet tile manufacturing company in the world. They are legendary for their work towards becoming sustainability. Industrial company the industry has a terrible track record of toxic materials. What they're now doing, in addition to looking at reducing environmental impact, they've figured out a way to add social value to their supply chain. They're paying people in vulnerable marine villages in the Philippines and Cameroon to collect used fishing nets that destroy the beaches and kill the marine life. They collect them, they pay them to collect them, they turn them into carpet tiles. And they're starting economies in these communities. So innovative companies can actually do much better by adding social value as well as financial value.
What can readers take away from your book, Cheryl?
One of the big things, I think, is we're taught to rely on experts. We're taught that these issues are somebody else's problem, right? Somebody has to solve that. My boss have to solve that.
I am so
we have to take ownership.
guilty of that type of thinking, Cheryl.
Yeah.
It's a whole lot of not my problem, right?
But we have to own
or
it.
I'm helpless to do anything about it.
Yeah, I'm not your person. Yeah.
Yeah, the big thing to take away is we actually can do something about it, and it requires just paying attention to what resources we have, the network we have, and that there is a process for how we can collaborate to solve these things.
Cheryl, that is great advice. I think I need to integrate that into
with
my
it.
thinking. Yeah, I'm
too.
playing with the T-Rex here. It's distracting. I'm like a little kid, but we appreciate you taking the time today.
Yes, thank
Happy
you
to be
so
here.
much.
Please
Thank
leave
you.
a copy of the book. I'm sure the staff will really enjoy it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Take care.
Well, that's the end of today's show. Thank you so much for being with us. Also, don't forget to join us back here later today for Bold Life at 2 p.m. Have a good one.